Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. Today, we have our first Italian tank replay. This, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, is the Prototipo Standard B. Or just the Standard B. This is the Italian Tier 9 medium tank. Although technically you could argue that it's more German than Italian. In the late 1950s, Germany and Italy collaborated to design a new tank, and this was one of the prototypes. Further development work on this prototype led to the Leopard 1. There were 3 German companies and 1 Italian company involved in the development process. So technically you could argue that the tank is 75% German and 25% Italian. But 25% Italian is good enough for the Italian tech tree. So here it is sitting at Tier 9. Now if you think this tank bears more than a passing resemblance to the Leopard prototype, you'd be exactly right, because it is a Leopard prototype. It's not the Leopard prototype, the German Tier 9 medium tank, but it is a Leopard prototype. It does differ from the German Leopard prototype, however, in some very, very significant ways. For one thing, it's lighter, and while even when fully upgraded it doesn't have a more powerful engine than the Leopard prototype, the overall power-to-weight ratio is still better, thanks to the reduced overall weight of this tank. So, better mobility than the Leopard prototype, and that's pretty impressive. Also, the gun is a little bit different. It's an autoloader, and the Italian autoloaders work slightly differently, as you can see, from the autoloaders enjoyed by other nations such as the French or the Americans. An Italian autoloader does not wait until the drum is completely empty before it starts reloading. An Italian autoloader, as Killer 90299 here is demonstrating, starts reloading the instant the first shot is fired. So unlike with other autoloaders, these tanks are constantly reloading as soon as they start shooting. They do take longer to reload each individual shell, the less shells that are ready to fire however. So for example, if you have 1 shell loaded, the second shell is going to take about 10 seconds to load. But once that shell is loaded, the third shell is only going to take around about 8.3 or 8.4 seconds to load. So if you need to do a lot of damage very quickly, you can just blat off all 3 of the shells as quickly as possible. That does mean that you're going to have to wait a while before you get the first shell back. But once you've got that shell back, the second and third shells aren't going to take as long to reload. And if you don't have to fire off all 3 shots, and you can afford to keep 1 shell loaded, the reload of the other 2 shells is going to be significantly faster. So there's a lot to think about when you're driving one of these Italian tanks. Oh, also it has fantastic gun depression over the front and sides, 10 degrees. 0 gun depression over the rear, but 10 degrees over the front and sides. So yeah. Let's just summarise. It's got better mobility than the Leopard prototype. It has a much more flexible gun than the Leopard prototype with much higher burst damage potential, and it's got 2 degrees better gun depression than the Leopard prototype, and also it's not made out of Amarax the same way that the Leopard prototype is. Germany, how did you screw that up? Remember, this tank's only 25% Italian, it's 75% German. So either one of 2 things has happened here. Either the Germans have decided we're going to keep all of the worst bits for our prototype. Because that's what the Germans do, isn't it? They make bad tanks. They're famous for it. Oh, actually, no, they're not. And the Italians, who are famous for making good tanks... Oh, wait, no, they're not. They kept all of the best bits for their prototype. And that, of course, is why the Standard B is so much better than the Leopard prototype in the German tech tree. Either that, or Wargaming are giving us magic tanks again. Which do you think is more likely? Well, anyway, you're about to witness the devastating burst potential of this machine when it does have 3 shots loaded. Killer's spotted the opportunity, and he's going for it. 1 shot into the side of the mouse, he's about to repeat it when the mouse turns the turret, presenting a flat target, and then the rear of the tank presenting another flat target, and the mouse is dead. But now, having expended all 3 shots, he does have to wait a fairly long time to get that first shell back, although it could be worse. He could be sitting around for a very long time, waiting to get all 3 shells back in an autoloader of another nation. Took a small hit from artillery there, managed to pump 1 into the rear of the E-75, didn't get an engine fire. Again, he's waiting out the reload for that first shell, and bang, E-75 dead. And now it's time to DD Mao and get out of here. Job done. By the way, Italy, don't take it personally. I know I said you're not famous for making good tanks, and it's true. You are not famous for making good tanks. That doesn't mean you haven't made some good tanks. You absolutely definitely have. The C1 Ariete, for example, is a very, very good main battle tank. It's comparable to the Leopard 2. Admittedly, it's based on the Leopard 2, but it's still Italian, and it's still a very, very good tank. You're just not famous for making good tanks in the way that Germany is. You're kind of like the British. You know, we had a history of making lots and lots and lots of absolutely terrible tanks until we eventually got it right with the Centurion and then the Chieftain and the Challenger. And now we're reasonably famous for making good tanks, but for a long time we weren't. So don't take it personally. You know, we've been there as well. In fact, if it's any consolation, we do have to give Italy credit for making some very, very good ships. And something that they are quite justifiably famous for. Okay, Italy, you happy? Right, good. What's going on? Yeah, team's down 1 tank. It's not the numbers that are important here, though. The entire team have been forced into one corner of the map. And that's not good, because that means, potentially, you're going to get caught in a crossfire. Only enemy tanks spotted are over there to the east. There's 1, there's 2. Drawing a bead on the AMX M449. There's another imposter tank. French tank. No, it isn't. It's a Tiger II. Built by the French. I mean, the French did have lots and lots of experience of building German tanks during World War II, so it's hardly surprising. Not through any choice of their own, of course. Oh, now I've got to apologise to the French. Oh, well, look, a Leopard prototype. A proper one. Well, he's taken a hit, so naturally he's now got a damaged ammo rack, because those are the rules when you're driving a Leopard prototype. However, Killer has taken a couple of hits in return, and of course he's fired off all 3 of his shots, so may as well get out of the line of fire while he's going through the reload. First shell's already loaded, just waiting for number 2 and number 3, and while he's reloading, he's having himself a little bit of a think. There are 5 enemy tanks remaining. We can only see 2 of them. Where's the Jagdpanther 2 and the Emil 2? They're wide open to the north here. Absolutely nobody has their gun pointing in this direction. And it looks like the same thought is occurring to the driver of the TVP over there, who's also getting a bit anxious about this massive gaping hole in their defences. So, okay, the TVP's taking the initiative. But he could potentially run into a Jagdpanther 2 and an autoloading heavy. So what Killer wants to do here, because there aren't many of them left and they can't afford to stretch their defence across half the map, is to put himself in a position where he can support the TVP, and if necessary, the rest of the team to the south. And there's the Emil 2. Okay, so he lines it up, hits him, damages him, blows his tracks off. The Emil is very quick, wastes no time whatsoever on the repair kit, and drags his ass into cover before Killer can unload the second shot. Of course, because he had 2 shots loaded in the drum, that third shot loads very, very quickly indeed. Now, of course, he has to make a choice. The Emil 2 is outside of effective line of fire. Down to the southeast, they haven't actually seen the Object 140 and the AMX in some time, but you can guarantee that TVP is about to run into the Emil 2. And from here, Killer can't really help him. So he makes the decision to commit to the north to assist the TVP against the Emil 2 who's just popped up. He has left it just a little bit too late, however. For the moment, the TVP is alone against the Emil 2, and he leaves him on 31 health with his magazine dry. Luckily for the TVP, the friendly artillery in the 212A was paying attention and saves his ass. But that's about all the good luck that that TVP is going to have for the rest of this game, because that's when the Jagdpanther 2 appears, Killer's first shot bounces, the second shot hits, the third shot also hits, but it's a day late and $1 short for the TVP. The Jagdpanther 2 survives. If the first shot had done damage, the Jagdpanther would be dead, but he still would have killed the TVP. That's not a fully upgraded Jagdpanther 2, by the way. I don't know if you noticed when we saw his outline while he was being targeted. There was a muzzle brake at the end of a relatively short-barreled gun. He's using the 105mm gun, not the 128mm gun, so that's not a fully upgraded Jagdpanther 2, enjoying a little tier 10 battle here, although he has managed to kill a tier 10 medium tank. And that's when Killer gets spotted, and it's not the Jagdpanther 2 who's spotted him. The Object 140 has just made his long-awaited reappearance, which explains why we haven't seen him for a while, but it's kind of ruined Killer's little plan to go wide, stay in the low ground and surprise that Jagdpanther 2, but he has not been spotted. And he's got him. Now the Object 140 was on very low health and is a one-shot kill. Where is he? He's out there somewhere. We haven't seen that AMX-49 in some time either. Those guys down at the south have been doing nothing but watching paint dry for the last 3 or 4 minutes. There's the Object 140. He knows he's been spotted. He tries to pull back, but he's just too slow. And it seems to be occurring to at least one other member of the team that they're going to be waiting until Judgment Day for that AMX to pop up again all the way down to the south, because he came up here to back up the Object 140 and the Jagdpanther 2. Unsurprisingly, none of them felt like crossing all of that open... Well, one of them did, the Leopard prototype, and look what happened to him. But the rest of them decided that crossing all of that open ground down to the south, when getting shot at by tanks dug in on a ridgeline, in concealment and with artillery cover, wasn't such a good idea after all. And that's why the rest of the tanks down to the south have been wasting their time for the last 5 minutes, watching the tree line for tanks that just weren't there. Luckily for Killer's team, both he and the driver of the TVP anticipated this coming, and now the shoe is very definitely on the other foot. With 6 kills and a Top Gun under his belt, Killer's now thinking about the Radley Walters medal. He's going to have to kill the last 2 remaining enemy tanks. He can afford to take 1 hit from the AMX, and the AMX can only afford to take 2 hits from him, which is just as well because he donked the first one into his angled sidearm, but the second one goes in, he does take a hit, and then he makes sure of the third one. 7 kills, 1 more for the Radley Walters, and there's only 1 more tank to kill, and it's at this point where Killer starts begging his team to let him have the last kill. Now, opinions are divided on this subject. Personally, I don't see the harm in it. You're not hurting anybody by asking for something. Of course, at the same time, you shouldn't be offended if your team tell you to sod off. At the end of the day, they're not here playing so you can get epic medals and tons of experience and credits. So, if your team are prepared to make you fight for that final kill, or whatever it is that you need to get the epic medal that you're close to getting, don't take it personally. At the end of the day, they're playing so they can earn experience and credits, and not so you can earn experience and credits. Of course, the other point of view is that you shouldn't ask in the first place, because an epic medal like a Radley Walters is something that you should earn, and not something that should be given to you. Oh, the enemy artillery has just announced his presence by driving into the cap circle. Well, it's a good job we're in the Standard B, and with the fastest tank on the team, should be able to get there ahead of everybody else. You know, if I was in this situation, well, not this situation, it's highly unlikely that I would ever be in the situation where I was about to get a Radley Walters medal, but if I was on his team, and I didn't need that last kill to get some kind of achievement or award of my own, I'd probably let him have it. I mean, he's probably going to get it anyway. But I wouldn't fight him for it. If nothing else, if he gets killed while chasing that final elusive kill, that makes it easier for you to get it. While the enemy tank's reloading. Oh, there he is. Well, obviously there was nowhere else he could be if he was inside the cap circle. And that's a hard-earned Radley Walters medal for Killer in the Prototipo Standard B, the 25% Italian and 75% German Tier 9 medium tank. The prototype Leopard that's better than the Leopard prototype in every way that matters. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.